All right. So we are going to get started and we're going to do a line and hold today. And let's make sure we've got 2 blocks and a blanket. And then for today, we're going to start out lying on our backs. And when you find yourself on your back, you can cactus your arms if you'd like. You can keep your knees straight or keep the knees bent. You can have the soles of the feet touching or let the knees knock in and keep the soles of the feet on the floor. But you're going to just take the first few moments to land here. And I want you to just pay attention to how you're experiencing this moment. Does it feel good to let the palms face up? Does it feel good to allow the palms to face down if you can do that easily? And then we'll start by noticing the weight of the back of the head, the back of the shoulders, your hips, maybe the legs, the feet. And I'd like you to take just 3 big breaths in and 3 audible breaths out. And we'll see if we can sort of build on, I guess, both our daily groan as well as our source of inspiration from Steve for today. I was thinking about something about the opportunity or the idea to start over. And so we're going to see if we can use every moment, every breath as the opportunity to start over. So as you breathe here for the next 3 minutes or so, I encourage you to start to breathe into your collarbones. Start to breathe down into the ribs and down into the belly. And can you allow every breath to be an opportunity to start over? So as you may know, I've been in rehearsal and this week I've been performing, and on Monday we did what's called an Italian. An Italian is basically you run through the entire show as quickly as you can, doing all the things you're supposed to do, not like cutting anything short, but just doing it all faster. And I found that as I was going through this, I increasingly got more frustrated and more anxious and started to disengage. And one of the pivotal things in theater, and I guess in performance in general, is this rule of yes and. Your partner gives you something, you say yes to it, and you build on. And I kept saying no, no, no. Every time this was happening, I wasn't giving myself permission to start over. We've got 1 more minute in this pose. And what I observed was there was a sense of sadness that came up in the idea of not allowing myself to start over, of not allowing myself to fully participate in what was happening. And I think that in some instances in life that can happen. Things can feel like they're going too fast and we just want to say no, we want to stop it, we want to control it. But what would happen if we just took a deeper breath, if we allowed ourselves to start over in this moment and say yes and to the best of our ability? So that's what we're going to focus on today. This ability to just say yes and. Whenever you notice your body or your mind or your emotions coming and saying no, how can you just take in a deeper breath, exhale and let it go, and allow yourself to say yes, yes to this moment, yes and. How can I build on to this? At the end of your next exhalation, you'll start to bend your knees if your legs are straight. From here, go ahead and pull your knees into your chest. Hold on to your right shin with your right hand, your left shin with your left hand. You might gently rock a little bit right to left and feel how that feels. You might stay completely in stillness, but you're just noticing, how can we start to say yes and? Let the moment come up, let us observe that and continue to deepen that. So let's go ahead and come to a still neutral spot. If you're in movement, keep your hands on your shins. As you inhale, let your shins draw away from your chest, your arms will straighten. And then as you exhale, pull the knees into the chest, imprint the low back. And you've got 4 of those. So you inhale, the shins go forward and away from you, and exhale, you draw them in towards your chest. And you're just doing 2 more of these, getting a little bit of movement happening at the low back. And then the next time the knees come into the chest, go ahead and squeeze them there even more. You might wrap your arms around the shins if that feels good. You might open the knees just a little bit wider, but you're just taking a moment to breathe. Awesome. Gently release your arms out to the right and to the left in a T shape. Hug the knees, ankles, and shins together and start to flex through your feet. Take a big breath in here, and as you exhale, let the legs start to drop over to the left, hovering off the floor about an inch. And then you'll inhale and come back up through center. And you've got 4 of these. And you're just working with the pace of your breath. So we're just going only to the left for now. Exhaling just to the left and inhaling back to center. Nice work, guys. And after you've done 4, you'll let both legs fall over to the left and you'll pause there. And once the legs go over to the left, you can either let the legs rest completely on the floor or hover them. It's up to you. If the legs are on the floor, the left hand might come to the top of the right thigh. Taking a deeper breath into that whole right armpit, right rib cage. Maybe start to turn your gaze towards the right hand. But you're allowing yourself to just notice what's happening here, noticing where the body might be tight, noticing where the breath might be tight. And we've got about 5 more steady, deep breath cycles here. Now, it was interesting to notice when I found myself saying no and no and no, it was because there was a sense of fear, a sense of like, maybe I can't do this right. Maybe I can't handle this. Maybe. But they were not based on positive things. On your next in-breath, let's go ahead and come back up through center. And then as you exhale, we'll try all that to the other side. So now your legs will go over to the right and hover about an inch. And then you'll inhale and come back up. And you're just doing 4 of these. And the slower that you move, the harder this becomes. So you modulate that for you. And the feet are flexed and the shins and the knees and the ankles, are pulling in towards each other. And after you've done 4 to the right, you'll allow the legs to either stay to the right, hovering off the ground, or just rest the knees and ankles on the floor. Once you get there, the right hand might come to the top of the left thigh. You might start to rotate the rib cage more to the left, maybe even turn the left cheek towards the floor to look at the left hand. And you've just got a few breath cycles here. And so then the question then becomes, well, how do you respond when you notice something might feel a bit challenging to you, or it might be really important to you and you just want to do it well? You want to do it as perfectly as you can. And how do you notice that your reaction may or may not be helping you attain that goal? So for me, I noticed that by saying no, I wasn't keeping myself open to play. And theater seems to be all about playing. And yet, at the time, I didn't feel like I had any other choice. But then, after the second run, second Italian, having a little resistance and breakdown with the director, things started to open up once I started to say yes. On your next in-breath, let's go ahead and come back up through center. As you exhale, you might hug the knees into the chest 1 more time. And then very gently, you'll release the hands and you'll release the feet. So their feet are on the floor. Keep the hands alongside the hips. And then just inhale, sweep the arms up and over your head to touch the floor behind you. And then exhale, draw the hands back down alongside your hips. And we've just got 4 more of these. So this next one, let it be a 5-count inhalation as the arms reach up and over your head. And follow that with a 5-count exhalation. Yep. And then subsequent one will be a 6-count inhalation and a 6-count exhalation. And then you'll do 2 more, 7, and then 8 counts. And we're just noticing that by slowing down the breath, it gives us a little bit more time to actually choose how we're responding. And I can't speak for any of you, but I do know that when I start saying no, my breath becomes short, it becomes shallow, and I'm more in fight, flight, or freeze mode and not in the rest and digest. All right, let's go ahead and build on to this. Next in-breath, push down through your feet, lift your hips, lift your arms up and overhead. And then as you exhale, slowly roll down the spine and draw the hands back alongside the hips. Great. And you've got 4 more of these. And again, we're working to see how long we can make the breath. So if your breath can stay at that 8 count, great, you stay there. If it feels like you need to work back up, going through a 5, 6, 7, and 8, you do that. But you're just saying yes and to your experience. Breathing up into your bridge and slowly articulating down through the spine. Nice work. Okay, this should be your last one. After you've done 4, we'll go ahead and stay up in bridge. Your hands will stay alongside your hips in whatever variation of the arms feels best to you. So once you're in your bridge, let's go ahead and press down evenly through the feet. Press down through whatever part of your arm is touching the floor. Maybe wrap the shoulder blades closer towards each other. And then see if you can lift your sternum closer to your chin. Press the back of the skull into the floor. And as we're here for this first minute hold, I encourage you to notice where you can say yes and, where the body's already starting to engage. Maybe you feel it in the feet, maybe you feel it in the legs, maybe you feel it in the arms or the chest. How can you notice what's there first? And then by taking a deeper breath, say yes and open to whatever new possibilities might be present. And again, as always, Kristen Neff talks about this a lot, but we want to be compassionate with ourselves. And one easy way to do that as we're in this is just to make sure your breath is calm. Make sure the breath is steady. Make sure the breath is fluid. We've got 5 more steady, deep breaths here. And as you're here for these last few breaths, just observe. How are you feeling in this moment physically? How are you feeling in this moment emotionally? And what thoughts might be going on? Take your last breath cycle here. And as you're ready, you'll gently release yourself back down to the floor and pause in stillness. Just pause in stillness. Notice what you notice. Notice the breath. Notice the body. And notice the mind. All right. Very gently extend your right arm alongside your ears. Roll over onto your right side. And then you're going to make your way onto your abdomen. So if you need to flip around, by all means, go ahead and flip around. And when you find yourself on your abdomen, bring your hands alongside your rib cage, separate your feet about hip distance apart, and plant the tops of your feet into the floor. Now, just as we've been doing, you'll inhale, pull your heart forward and through, coming to a baby cobra. And then you'll exhale and lower down. And you've got 4 more of those, and you'll see if you can make this first one a 5 count inhalation to come up into cobra. And then a 5 count exhalation down. And then again, maybe elongating the breath to a 6 count inhalation, followed by a 6 count exhalation. And as you do this 2 more times, maybe making the breath 7 and then 8 counts, you're seeing how you can say yes and. So, how are you lifting the chest, but also keeping the legs engaged? How are you using the core to support the length of the spine? How are you saying yes and? There's so many things that, when you're a performer, no matter what you're doing, whether it's music or art or even practicing law or working at your job, whatever you're doing, there's always a performance going on. And it requires that we manage multiple things at once. So this next time you come up into Cobra, we're going to go ahead and hold, and this will be our next hold. Press down into the tops of the feet. Keep the legs energized, tailbone lengthened back, shoulders away from your ears. And we've got a minute here. So let's go ahead and breathe. And as you're breathing, see if you can continue to breathe into collarbones, breathing into upper middle ribs. Continue to lengthen your tailbone down, press the pinky toes down. And you're just noticing, you're softening your breathing. As resistance starts to come up, either in the form of sensation, feelings, or thoughts, can you just allow yourself to be aware of them? Can you allow yourself to take in a deeper breath? We've got about 5 more breath cycles here. Calm, steady breath. At the end of your next exhalation, gently lower down. Take a moment to pause and just experience the weight of your spine against the floor and notice what that feels like. Notice the shoulders, notice the belly, notice the weight of the pelvis. All right, let's go ahead and plant our hands underneath our shoulders, press up to hands and knees. If you need to pad your knees, this would be a great time to do it. And this would also be a great time to plant your blocks to the upper outer corners of your space. Great. Once you find yourself in hands and knees, let's make sure hands are shoulder distance apart. Curl both sets of toes under. Inhale, drop your belly, lift your gaze, lift your tail. And then exhale, hips up and back, downward facing dog. And as usual, you've got 4 more of these. So let's go ahead and inhale and come down, hands and knees, drop the belly, lift the gaze. And exhale, press back, down dog, 5 counts. Yep, and 3 more on your own. And you're working with elongating the breath. So a 6 count inhalation followed by a 6 count exhalation. And we're just giving ourselves time to slow down. For me, I'd noticed that this rehearsal process had been really, really quick. And I felt like I didn't have enough time. I felt like I just needed more time. And that wasn't something that was actually available to me, and feeling that way made me more resistant to what was happening. So after you do your last one with an 8 count exhalation back to downward facing dog, we'll stay there for our next hold. And so once we find ourselves in this downward facing dog, keep your knees as bent as you need to. Press down and forward through the L shape of your hands, lift up through the inner elbows, the inner armpits, and press your hips up and back. From there, you might draw the kneecaps up towards the hips to straighten the legs and reach the heels back towards the floor. But just as we started, I want you to go back to the breath. Can you breathe into the collarbones? Can you breathe into the armpits, into the ribs, down into the belly, down into the pelvis? Can you notice if there's any tension around the neck and the shoulders that you can soften? Can you notice if you can breathe up around the pelvis so that maybe the pubic bone lifts away from you just a little bit as the tailbone also lifts up and away? We've got one more minute in this shape. And just observe and notice how you're in this moment. Are you saying yes or are you saying no? And if you're aware of either, maybe you might notice how that impacts you. At work, we had a seminar this week about dealing with distress with our clients. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was they were talking about 4 ways of noticing whether or not you or your client was in distress. And I thought it was interesting because my pattern went opposite of what they were saying that I should notice. They said you should notice your thoughts first, and then your emotions, and then the feelings in the body, and then how you were behaving. But for me, I noticed my behavior, and then the body, and then the emotions, and then the thought. All right, on your next in breath, go ahead and lift your right leg up and back. As you exhale, quietly step that right foot between your hands. You might bring your hands to your blocks now, or keep your hands on the floor. Lower the back knee to the floor. Inhale, reach your heart and sternum forward and up. And then exhale, shift your butt back, straighten your front leg long. And you've got 4 of these. So you'll inhale, coming forward into that Asana, heart through the gate of the arms. And then exhale, pressing back, half splits, Ardha Hanumanasana. And as you do this 2 to 3 more times on your own, pay attention to the small adjustments that you might make in the body each time you move forward and each time you move back, in order to create a little bit more space where you can say yes to staying in this shape, where you can say yes to exploring the sensations, where you can say yes to exploring this experience that you might be having at this moment in time. Awesome. So the next time you come forward to that Anjaneyasana position, we're going to pause, push down into that front foot, push down into that back knee, and start to bring your spine a little bit more vertically. You might want to walk the blocks back so they're alongside your hips, should you want them. And then you can stay right here, or you can inhale and lift just your left arm up. You might stay right here, or take a little happy side bend towards the right, maybe lowering your right hand down to the block to the right. And again, we're pushing down through the right foot. We're lengthening our tailbone down, and we're drawing our left ribs in so that we can find a nice stretch across our psoas on the left side. And then notice if there's any tension around that left shoulder that you can soften. Yep. If there's any tension in the jaw. And you've got about 4 more breath cycles here. Tailbone's lengthening down, left knee pushes down, right foot pushes down, left ribs pull back, and at the same time, you're softening across the face, softening across the left shoulder. Awesome sauce. On your next inhalation, you'll come up through center. As you exhale, bring your hands forward just a bit. You have the option of either Ardha Hanumanasana to stay or pyramid pose, so you take your choice. You'll either straighten both legs or just straighten the front leg. And then from there, we'll pull the kneecap up, especially on that front leg. Draw that outer right hip back. If you're in Ardha Hanumanasana, keep that right leg active, pulling the right pinky toes back. And then everyone, as best as you can, see how you can lengthen the spine first. Yep. And then hinge at the hips, keeping the spine really long. And then you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. If you're in the modified pyramid, you're pushing from your right sit bone down to your right big toe. If you're in Ardha Hanumanasana, you're pushing from your right sit bone down to your right heel. You're pushing your left knee down and hugging those 2 points together. And you've just got about 3 or 4 breath cycles here. Just paying very close attention to how you're responding. Great. Last breath cycle here. Awesome. Next in breath, let's go ahead and come forward to a low lunge. As you exhale, plant both hands on the mat. Tuck the back toes under if they're not. Step the right foot back to the left foot, plank pose. Now you can stay in plank as regular plank or go to forearms if that works for you. But we're going to lift up through those inner thighs, lengthen back through your tailbone, and reach your heart and sternum forward. Now, if you're in regular plank, I want you to notice how if you change the weight just slightly on your hands, maybe more to the pinky fingers or more to the index fingers, it changes what's happening in your shoulder girdle. So pay attention to that. If you're on your forearms, see if you can push down more through the whole outer part of the forearm and then lift up through the inner armpits. And we've got another minute here. And so you'll just pause and you'll breathe. You'll notice if you're saying yes or if you're saying no. And then to the best of your ability, observe what that's doing to your experience. For me, I noticed when I was saying no, it brought up a lot of shame for me. Like I kept thinking, oh, Jessica, the performance will be in just a few days and it'll go so quickly and you won't even enjoy it because you're not allowing yourself to play. It was not fun. And I think sometimes we do that in other aspects of life. We don't allow ourselves to enjoy what may be happening because we don't have complete control over it. And I guess the reality is we never have complete control over anything. We've got 3 more breath cycles here. Well, anything except for our own breathing and anything except for our own attitude about it. All right. The end of your next exhale, you'll lift up and back, downward facing dog. Great. Let's go to the other side. Inhale, lift your left leg up and back. As you exhale, quietly step that foot between your hands. Bring your hands to the blocks, or maybe you leave them on the floor. And then lower the back knee to the floor as you inhale and reach your heart through the gates of your arms. Yep. And then just as we did before, exhale, straighten the front leg, shift your pelvis back. And you've got 4 more of these. So you're just coming in and out of that Ardha Hanumanasana half split and Anjaneyasana low lunge with the knee down. And as you move forward and as you move back, you're just paying attention. What small change can you make either in the placement of the front foot, maybe in the engagement of the leg, maybe in how you're pressing down through the back knee, in order to change your sensation, in order to change your experience. It's pretty fascinating to know that every moment we can start again. We can make an adjustment if we just allow ourselves to. Okay. After you've done 4, we're going to go ahead and inhale and come back for Anjaneyasana. And then once we're there, let's go ahead and push down into that front foot. Press down into the back knee. Start to walk the blocks back so they're alongside your hips and bring your spine up to vertical. Yep. From there, you might choose to stay right there, or you might lift your right arm up and overhead. Continue to push down into front knee, back foot, and then front foot, back knee. And then you might take a little side bend towards the left. And if you go to the left, continue to lengthen your tailbone straight down. Draw your right ribs in. And then notice how you can soften around the neck, especially around the right shoulder and around the jaw. And you might feel a nice stretch going all along the right side of the body. You might feel a lot of work happening in that left foot glute area as you press, stamp that left foot down. And then you're just pausing and you're breathing. Can you soften your face? Can you soften your jaw? We've got 3 more breath cycles here. How long, how smooth, how steady can you make your breath? Nice work, guys. Next in breath, Go ahead and come up through center. As you exhale, you're going to straighten your front leg. Hands might come to blocks or floor, or you'll take that pyramid pose if you took that on the first side. So either the front leg is straight or both legs are straight. If only the front leg is straight, pull all 5 toes of that left foot back towards your left knee. Yep. And then see if you can lift the spine so it's completely straight, and then just hinge from the hips. So keeping the spine completely straight, pressing down into that front heel if just the back knee is down, and then pushing into the back knee and hugging those points together. If both legs are straight, press down into that front big toe mound. Draw the outer left hip back and just pause and breathe. Notice if there's any tension around your face, around your shoulders. If there's any tension in the breath, can the breath be steady? Can the breath be smooth? You've got about 3 more breath cycles here. Nice work. On your next inhalation, let's go ahead and come forward to a low lunge. Okay, this time you're going to take a big step forward and come to Uttanasana, forward fold. So you tuck that back toes under and you step all the way to the top of your space. Yep. And then once you get there, separate your feet as much as you need to. You might grab opposite elbow. You might just keep your hands touching the floor or the blocks. If your knees need to bend, let your knees bend. We want to elongate the back of the spine here. If your legs are straight, think of pressing from your sit bones straight down into your heels. And then notice the weight on the feet. Is it even front to back? Is it even right to left? And there's an added bonus. If you want a little bit more space in your low back, almost think about blossoming your buttocks here so that your pelvis can rotate over the head of the thigh bone, and it just creates more space in the low back. And then as sensation starts to build while we're here, notice if you can breathe, and notice if you can be still and alert and attentive to it. One of the interesting things I think about this practice is the fact that when we start to fidget a lot, it just sort of shows us physically where our resistance is. You know, when I was taking this workshop that we had at work, I thought it was fascinating that this lady was saying to start with your thoughts and seeing where that led you. And I was like, I understand if I'm behaving in a way I don't like, if I'm avoiding things, or if I'm anxious, or if I'm this. I understand if my body's feeling tense or tight. I understand if suddenly I'm in a sour mood or not in a sour mood. But I wasn't always aware of the thoughts that were leading to the emotions, which are thoughts in motion, or the physical sensations in the body, or how I was showing up and interacting with others. So it's interesting to know that that can go both ways. And so you're just checking in and seeing which one is for you. Do you notice your thoughts first? Do you notice how you're behaving first? And in our practice today, we're just noticing how the body's feeling, letting that be a good guide. Okay, you got your last breath cycle here. Great. On your next inhalation, slide your hands up your shins, lift your spine halfway. And then exhale, fold all the way back in. You've got 3 more of those. And as you come up to halfway lift, bend the knees as much as you need to make the spine super long. Yeah, that looks nice. And then exhale, fold all the way in. And again, we're seeing if we can keep working on elongating that breath, maybe towards that 8 count inhalation, followed by that 8 count exhalation. Yep. All right. And then the next time you happen to come up into Ardha Uttanasana, you'll go ahead and stay there. Again, press your shin bones forward into the fingertips. If the fingertips are touching, press the fingertips back into the shin bones. Bend the knees as much as you need to in order to blossom your buttocks behind you. Draw the shoulders away from your ears. Yep. And then draw your sternum towards your chin lightly towards your sternum. And then if you can do this next thing, yes, and you're pressing from sit bones down to heels to engage a different part of your hamstring. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. Excuse me. And we've got about 3 more breath cycles here. Awesome sauce. Inhale. And as you exhale, sweep your arms alongside your hips. Inhale, bend your knees, reach your arms up and overhead, Utkatasana. Exhale, airplane the arms back alongside your hips. Cool. Now we've got 4 of these, so we're going to stay in chair pose and just sweep our arms up and alongside our ears. And then exhale, airplane the arms straight back and alongside our bum. And as you take these last 2, you're just feeling what it feels like to be in our chair pose. And yes, arm movements in any direction you want, or it's completely okay, just as long as they're going up and over your head and coming back alongside your hips. Okay, this next one, we'll go ahead and reach our arms up and overhead. See if we can sit our butt low, and we're going to stay here in Utkatasana for a minute. So technically, I've tricked you. You've already been here a minute. So we're going to see this next minute just being still. And just notice how that feels. When we say yes, and we're staying in movement, we're staying in flow. When we say no, we're clenching tightly, trying to rigidly hold something in place. And that definitely impacts how we're experiencing it. So even as we're still here, how can you say yes and to the small things that are happening internally in the body? How can you say yes and to the breath? How can you say yes and to this space and the experience that you might be having in this moment as we have another 30 seconds on the clock? It's funny that the only constant in life, aside from death and taxes, is change. And yet I find myself so resistant to that. All right, you got your last 2 breath cycles here. On your next inhalation, stand up, reach up, look up, drop your tailbone down, and you can keep the arms up and overhead or lower them alongside your hips and just take a moment, literally 1 whole minute, to just breathe. The eyes can be open or the gaze can be closed. But I want you to feel what it feels like to just be in your body, to feel the feet on the floor, to feel the clothes touching your skin, to feel maybe some strands of hair or just the air touching your skin. Everything's always in motion. Yes, and we've got about another 5 steady breath cycles here. And just observe. How are you feeling? What do you notice in the body? What do you notice in your emotions, in your mental state, in your thoughts? And how do all these things impact how you show up in the world? And are they helping you show up in the way you'd like, or are they somehow limiting you from showing up the way that you'd like? All right, if the eyes are closed, gently open them. Let's go ahead and step our right foot long and back, and we're going to take Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. So first, I'd like you to make sure your stance feels like it is a yes and position for you, meaning yes, you can do this, and it might be a little challenging. So maybe you're a little longer than you normally would be. And then let's go ahead and press down into the center of that front foot, press onto the pinky toe edge of that back foot. Continue to bend through the front knee so it tracks over the center of the front foot. And then open the arms. And so we're going to say yes and. Yes to reaching forward to whatever life we're looking towards. Yes, to reaching back to the past that we're clinging to or we have fond memories of, and yes, to being present, to being grounded between the two. So as you're reaching forward through that left arm, reaching back through the right, can you find a sense of equanimity, of balance? As you're pushing into the left foot and externally rotating the left thigh, can you continue to press down through the right foot and maybe slightly internally rotate that left thigh? And then again, can you bring your awareness to your breath? How your breathing is impacting how you're thinking is impacting how you're feeling is impacting the sensations in the body and how you are showing up in the world. And so, how can you allow yourself to say yes and? We've got about another 45 seconds or so here. So let's continue to breathe. Continue to notice the experience and notice how you can soften. Notice what you want to continue to hold on to and what you're hoping to let go of. Awesome. You've got 2 more breath cycles here. Let them be long, let them be steady, let them be deep. At the end of your next exhalation, go ahead and straighten that front leg long. Then reach forward, out, and down to come into Utthita Trikonasana, extended triangle pose. And the first thing that you're going to do is notice where you would like to plant that left hand. Is it on a block? Is it on the floor? Is it on the shin? Is it inside or outside of that front foot? And then let's sweep our right hand back so it's alongside our hip. Turn the palm to face up and inhale, sweep the arm up and overhead like you're creating a rainbow. And then exhale, rainbow the arm back. And you've got 3 more of those. And so as you inhale and sweep the arm up, you might look at the fingertips. As you exhale, you might engage the belly and rotate the right ribs up and back behind you, left ribs forward. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. You're in movement, but you're also noticing how you can slow things down a bit. Yeah, guys, nice work. All right. Now your choice, you might just let that right arm go straight up to the sky, making a 180-degree angle from the left, or you might reach the right arm alongside your ears, palm face down. We're going to stay here for our next minute. And so as you're here, you're continuing to press from your left sit bone straight down to your left heel, left big toe mound. You're pressing your outer right hip down to your right pinky toe. You're noticing if you can continue to have length on your underside body, that's your left side body, so left shoulder away from left ear. Yep, and then letting those left ribs wrap under and forward, right ribs wrap back. And just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. Yes, and. You've got 3 more breath cycles here. On your next inhalation, come straight up, straighten the front leg. Turn both feet parallel to the short edge of your space and lower your arms. And just take a moment to pause. Moment to pause. How does that feel? How can we allow ourselves the opportunity to just be still in our experience, to really be that witness so that we can notice if how we're behaving is how we wish to behave? And maybe even check in to notice what things might be influencing our behavior, our feelings, the way that our body's feeling, or our thoughts. All right, if your eyes are closed, gently open them. Now you can choose how the heck you want to do this, but you're going to turn around 180 degrees. I loved that. Okay. So once you've turned around 180 degrees, we're going to make sure our right foot is coming towards the top of the space. Step your left foot back, and we're taking warrior two on the other side. Great. Awesome. And then from there, the first thing you do is just say yes and. What does your warrior two look like today? Yes, we know what the shape is supposed to look like. Yes, we've done this a lot of times. Yes, yes, yes. And today it's its own little animal. So how can you be in your own little animal today? And then we'll notice if we can press into the center of that right heel, letting that right knee track over the center of the right foot. Press down onto the pinky toe edge of the left foot. And you might notice some days it feels like there's a nice stretch happening on the inner thigh of the back leg. And then again, notice, how are you reaching forward? How are you reaching back? Yes, and we have nostalgia and we have hope. We have aspiration and inspiration. We have stability. We have ease. How do we find them all? Yes, and. And so as we're here for the next minute or so, I encourage you to notice where you can soften, where you can yield just a little bit. I keep coming back to Tom Stoppard. He's a playwright, but he says the more we pick up, the more we must let go. And I think that's true. We become more discerning. We say yes, and we notice what's important to us, what we want to keep, and what we want to allow space for. And so as you're here, you're noticing what you want to keep, and you're also noticing what you want to make space for. Space for showing up in your relationships the way you'd like. Space for showing up in your life and in your work in the way that you'd like. Space for showing up for you in the way that you'd like. All right, on your next in-breath, go ahead and straighten that front leg. As you exhale, reach forward, out, and down, bringing the right hand to the shin, to the block, to the floor. And then again, is it on the inside? Is it on the outside? Is it directly on the shin? It does not matter, but you're paying attention. Yes, and. And then once you're set in your legs, you'll sweep your left arm back alongside your hip. And then we've got those rainbow things going on. So inhale, rainbow the left arm up and over your ears. And exhale, rainbow it back. And as you take these next three on your own, you're noticing how you can elongate the breaths. Maybe the inhalation can become just a bit longer as the gaze potentially follows the fingers. Maybe you can engage the abdomen on the exhale so that you rotate more of the ribs towards the left-hand side of your space. Awesome sauce. And so that looks like we've done about 4. And then when we come to our hold, you can either have the arms extended out from one another at 180 degrees. You might have that left arm, palm faces down, arm alongside your ear. Would you just take a few breaths here? And you're pressing that whole outer left hip back and down to the left pinky toe. You're pressing from your right sit bone down to the right big toe, still pulling that right kneecap up. And you're saying yes and to having that hope, open heart space. Take your last 2 breath cycles here. Awesome sauce. Inhale, come back up to vertical. As you exhale, let's turn both feet parallel to the short edge of your space. Bring your hands to the back of your sit bones. Inhale, lift your heart and sternum up. And as you exhale, you'll start to hinge at the hips, sliding your hands down the backs of the legs, down towards the outer ankles. You might eventually just release and bring the hands underneath the shoulders or continue to hold on to your ankles. You're doing whatever is working for you. And we're going to be here for a bit of time. So the first thing I'd like you to notice is notice what it feels like, making sure feet are both really parallel to each other, to press the pinky toe edges down. Yep. To send your inner thighs back. And again, it's almost like you're rolling your pelvis up and over your thigh bones so that your low back has more space. And then with the hands on the floor, if they're on the floor, notice if you can soften more weight around the head. So let the bowling ball weight of the head be up, take into effect. And then notice what's happening in the shoulders and seeing if you're clenching and holding in the shoulders or if there's the ability to soften around the shoulders. And then as we're here for a little bit longer, you might start to then notice what's happening in the legs. Are the kneecaps pulling up and that's engaging the backs of the hamstrings, or do you feel it in the inner thighs across the pelvis as you blossom your buttocks back? Notice how there's the ability to release any tension in your mouth. Notice if there's any tension in the shoulders. And you're just pausing and breathing. Awesome sauce. You've got 3 more steady breaths here. Yes, and what does that mean for you in your life? What does that mean for you in this moment? All right, let's go ahead and walk our hands under our shoulders. Now, put enough weight into your hands that you can either start to walk or hop your feet together. And then you're going to draw your knees to the floor, sit on top of your shins and come for child's pose, or just sit straight up, your choice. So we've got 1 minute here. So either in child's pose or just sitting on our shins. 1 minute. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. Those that are in child's pose, notice how you can release the weight of the chest, the torso down. Those that are sitting on their shins, notice how you can release the weight of the torso in such a way that it actually makes it lighter. So maybe the sternum feels like it lifts and the shoulder blades drop. Yep. And I guess the thing to ask is, how can you start over in this moment? Right here, right now. All right. Those of you that are in child's pose, bring your hands underneath your shoulders and start to bring yourself up to vertical. And then we're all going to make our way to toe squat, however you'd like to get there. So you'll probably have to shift your hands forward, curl your toes under, and sit your bum back. And as we're here for this minute, I encourage you to take whatever arm variation of your choice if you'd like. Lately, I've been enjoying metal mudra, so like you can just interlace the hands and either come all together and steeple the fingers up, or you can be a little further up, but I've been finding this really helpful. And then you'll just keep the spine vertical and you're breathing. You're noticing what you notice. How can you say yes and? Yes, you are having this experience. And yes, it might not be the one you want to have. And yes, it's not going to last forever. I've got about 4 more breath cycles here. With the end of your next exhale, you'll gently come forward, hands and knees, pitter patter the tops of your feet. Take a counter stretch if you'd like, stretching knees, shins, and ankles if that feels good to you. Awesome. And then from there, if you're facing the side of your mat, please turn to face the top of your mat. Let's all lower our forearms down to the floor. You can either come to prayer position or a number 11 shape. Take a few cats and cows here before we go any further. So make sure elbows are underneath your shoulders. And you're just taking your little cats and cows. Okay. Nice. And then the next time you're in your cat shape, go ahead and pause. Option number 1 is to just step one foot back and then the other foot back. So we'll all do that. Step one foot back and then the other foot back and come into this weird forearm plank thing. You have the option to stay right here. Option number 2 is to start to walk your feet towards your face, lifting up through your happy inner armpits, pressing down through your forearms and coming into a dolphin shape. And again, we're saying yes and. How do we find stability and length? How do we find a greater expression in the breath? And we'll be here for about a minute. And when you've had enough, child's pose will be where we'll meet. Yes, and. Awesome. Take your last 2 breath cycles here. And then at the end of your next exhalation, child's pose is where we'll go. And for this one, you might sweep the arms back alongside your hips. You might let the arms still go forward. You might even make little fists and tuck those into your belly. I personally like that sometimes. It feels really nice. And then you'll just pause and you'll breathe. Yes, and. We can always start over in every moment, in every breath, in every situation that we find ourselves in. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy necessarily, but it does mean that we do have that choice. It's just a matter of breaking the habit that says that we don't. All right, let's go ahead and gently come up to sit. Once you're vertical, bring your pelvis to the floor and swing your legs around in front of you. And some of you might choose to sit up on a blanket, or you might just be on the floor. And we're going to take Ardha Matsyendrasana. So extending both legs in front of you, go ahead and bend your right knee, drawing your right knee towards your chest. Cross your right leg up and over the outside edge of your left thigh. You might keep that left leg straight, or you might bend the left knee so that the left foot touches the outer edge of your right hip. And then we're going to sit as tall as we can, hugging that right leg into us and start to turn towards our right. You might bring the right hand back behind you. Excuse me. And then we'll just stay here for a bit of time. And again, you're finding where you can find space on that left side, how you can find space on that right side. You can find softness across the shoulder blades, verticality through the spine. And once you've got all of that and you said yes to all of that, we say yes and to the breath. How can you deepen the breath? Awesome sauce. On your next inhalation, you'll gently unwind and come back through center. Go ahead and extend the left leg first, unwind the right leg. Sit for a moment in Dandasana. You might circle the ankles if that feels like something you wish to do, or you might remain completely still. We've just got about 3 or 4 more breath cycles here before we switch sides. Okay, and then as you're ready, we'll go ahead and try the other side. So first things first is we'll bend the left knee in towards our chest, and then you'll cross the left foot outside of the right leg. You might stay here with the right leg long. You might bend the right knee so the hip swings around. And again, if you did so on the first side, you'll switch your butt to the right. And then we'll lift up super tall through the spine and start to rotate towards the left. Maybe left hand comes back behind you, maybe it doesn't, but you're finding length through the spine. You're pressing into that left big toe. You might be pressing the left knee into the right arm, pulling the right arm into the left leg. You might notice if there's tension happening in the upper collarbones, shoulder blades, ribs, especially on that left side. And then you'll notice if you can take in a deeper breath. You'll notice if you can find verticality, length through the spine. See if you're hiking up your left shoulder and see if you can let that soften. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. You have 3 more breath cycles here. At the end of your third exhalation, you'll inhale and unwind the spine to center. Go ahead and extend your right leg long if it's bent. Extend the left leg long. And then from here, we're going to slowly make our way onto our backs. So however you wish to get there, this would be a great time to cover up the body if you're not. We're just going to pause on our back for a moment. So we started here. I want you to just notice how you feel in this moment. How's the weight of the head, the weight of the shoulders, the weight of the pelvis? Okay. Go ahead and walk your feet so they're hip distance apart, knees bent. Cross your right ankle over the top of your left thigh. Flex through that right foot a lot. And then draw your legs towards your chest. Bring your hands through the whole of your legs and either grab the back of the left leg or the front of the left shin. You might stay completely still here. You might do a gentle rocking right to left. And you're just paying attention. What does this feel like? What aspects of life might be easier for you if you allowed yourself the possibility to start over every moment, to say yes to the given circumstances or to whatever is being asked of you. And if you found yourself saying no, to give yourself permission to be kind to yourself, to notice that you said no, and then to say yes again, to start over, to re-engage. Awesome. Take one more breath cycle here. At the end of your exhalation, you'll gently release the hands, bring the left foot down, bring the right foot down. Take a moment to pause and just notice. How do you feel? How does the right hip feel? The left hip? How does that impact the right shoulder, the left shoulder? How does that impact your breath? As you're ready, we'll try the other side. So you'll cross your left ankle over the top of the right knee, right thigh area. Flex through that left foot a lot. Yep, and then draw your legs towards your chest. Interlace hands at the back of the thigh or the front of that right shin. And just as we did before, you might be still as a cucumber, cool as a cucumber. You might be rocking just a little bit right to left. So you're just pausing and you're breathing. Notice the length of your neck. Does it feel like your chin is jutting up to the sky, or does it feel like it's more drawn towards the sternum? Got about 5 more breath cycles here. At the end of your next exhalation, you'll gently release, drawing that right foot to the floor and then the left foot to the floor. Take a moment to pause and to settle, see if there's just anything that you happen to notice being alive and alert within you. Now, at this moment, I'd like you to check in. What does saying yes and feel like to you? What does starting over in this moment feel like to you? If there's any final shape that you need to feel like you can rest in Shavasana, by all means, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, start to make your way to your final resting pose. And by that, it could be Supta Baddha Konasana, it could be Shavasana, it could be legs up the wall. You choose what feels most comfortable to you, what feels most nurturing to you, and you make your way to that final resting pose. And if you've been experiencing a lot of anxiety or grief, I would encourage you to put a blanket or a pillow or something really heavy, not super heavy, but something on your abdomen. A pillow works great. If you had a meditation cushion, that works great. And you're literally just putting it on your abdomen. Okay. And then as you take your first few breath cycles in your final resting pose, I encourage you to notice if you need to fidget around so it feels like you're completely comfortable. And then if you have something on your abdomen, I want you to focus on breathing into that something that's on your abdomen. So every time you inhale, you use the abdomen to lightly press that thing away from you. And every time you exhale, you soften, you receive the weight of that thing. And if you don't have anything on your abdomen, you can just imagine that there's something on your abdomen. And all this is doing from a physiological perspective is we're training your diaphragm. And what that does is a lot of times when something becomes hard emotionally, we don't breathe as fully as we can. And because we're not breathing as fully as we can, we're not thinking as clearly as we can. And sometimes that can hijack our emotional state of how we're experiencing things, which then in turn impacts our behavior. And so right now we're training the body to start over by teaching it how to breathe deeper, teaching it how to do what it already knows how to do, but through habit, we haven't been allowing it to do what it needs to do. So we're going to stay here for the next few moments, just breathing into the belly. And when it's time to come out, I will let you know. Gently return your awareness. As you come back, just notice your breathing. Notice if you have that thing on your belly and if you want to keep it there, or if you want to take it off and just observe the breathing. As you come back to this moment, again, just take a moment to check in. How are you feeling? What do you notice in the body? How do you observe the breath? How do you observe your thoughts? If there's any part of you that longs to linger in this shape, by all means, please hang out here. When you are ready to move forward, you'll start to invite small movement into your physical form in whatever way feels good to you. Those in stillness, please stay as long as you'd like. Those in movement, you'll start to make your way to one of your sides. From your side, you'll gently roll yourself to a tall, comfortable seat. And when you do find yourself vertical, those that are vertical, I do encourage you to sit up super tall and super well. And once you're elevated, take a moment to notice what it feels like to stack the ears over the shoulders over the hips. We're going to complete with 3 rounds of Nadi Shodhana. So as usual, you'll use your right hand, using the thumb to close the nostril, ring finger, pinky finger rest on the outside edge of the left nostril. You'll exhale all the breath out through the mouth. Close your right nostril and inhale through your left. Top of your inhalation, you'll close your left and exhale out through your right. When you need to, you'll draw the breath back in through your right. Top of the inhalation, close your right nostril and exhale out through your left. And you'll just do 2 more like that, moving as slowly as the body wants to. And just being attentive to the breath that's coming in and out. After you've done 3 rounds, you'll gently lower your right hand and just sit as tall as you can. And still with the gaze either closed or softly resting on the floor, sit as tall as you can and just observe the breath. How do we say yes and to all the facets of life? Notice the sensations in the body. Notice any emotions that might be present. Notice any thoughts. And still, to the best of your ability, choose to be still. Whenever the mind wanders, you might just come back to observing the breath, come back to observing the sensations and where you can let go of tension in the body. We'll go ahead and complete our practice by drawing our hands to heart center Anjali Mudra. Press your palms into each other. Receive the weight of the thumbs into the sternum and then lift the heart towards the hands. Soften the chin towards the throat and then exhale any and all breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. Om. To that light, to that breath, and to that sound, we bow. Namaste.